Why are there so many European documents discussing the Agikuyu? And I'm talking about pre-colonial and colonial era documents. There are several reasons, but I have like three. Now, I need to say this. I spend a lot of time reading colonial and pre-colonial documents, especially regarding Kenya and the East Africa in general. And these documents are very interesting, and I recommend that you read them because you are going to learn what Kenya, what Uganda, what Tanzania was really or is, the roots, the foundations. Often we are born, of course, most of us are born in the independence period, and we actually don't know what happened before colonial times and what happened during colonial times. I've had my eyes open to some very interesting things that happened before colonization and during colonial times in Kenya by reading these documents. Now, of course, these documents, most of them can be found in the maybe the archives, like the National Archives and other places in Kenya and maybe London, wherever. But fortunately, of course, if they are in London, most of us can't travel to London. It can be very difficult. But fortunately, in the recent past, many of these documents have been digitized, and you can find them online on platforms like archive.org or gutenberg.org. And even the University of Nairobi, I've seen that they are digitizing and making public some of these documents. I recently read a document that was discussing something that happened in Gusiland in 1908, around there. So you can read these documents. So I've been reading them, and they are very interesting. Now, uh, this video is about why there is so much. Of course, there's a lot of talk about the other peoples of Kenya, the Kalenjin, the Nandi, the Kisi, the Luya, the Kavirondo, they used to call them, and the Luos, the Kamba, and all these. But there are a lot more documents discussing the Akikuyu. And there are like three reasons why. That's what I've come to the conclusion. Number one is that the Kikuyu occupied a land that was on or around a physical feature that was so pronounced, and that's Mount Kenya. Mount Kenya is a mountain that the Europeans discussed for a long time before they even came to see it. They would hear of it when they come to the coast. They would be told there is a mountain, there is Kilimanjaro, yes, but there is another one. So they knew of Mount Kenya before they saw it. The Kikuyu interested the Europeans because of that. That's number one. Them being residents of the land that surrounds this mountain. Remember, Mount Kenya, I think, is the second tallest or highest mountain in Africa after Kilimanjaro. So it's not a small matter. So that's one of the reasons. That's one reason. The reason number two comes after the British decide to settle on the land. Kenya is a protectorate beginning 1894. The British have decided this land is very good. Now, when you read books like the East Africa Protectorate by Sir Charles Eliot, who was like the first, we could say, governor, or was they called the commissioner, he talks about it actually. He talks of the lands of the Akikuyu as being the most fertile, the most interesting land to the Europeans to settle and do farming. C.W. Hobley, another one who became a commissioner, provincial commissioner, district commissioner, also talks about it in some of his books, including the book Kenya from a Chartered Company to a crown colony. He discusses the land of the Akikuyu as being very interesting. So the land was an issue. So that's the number two. Number one was the mountain. Number two was the land. It was very good land, good climate actually, no diseases like fly and malaria. That made that land very, very, very interesting to the Europeans. Like, oh, we could settle on that land, and we don't have to deal with fly, malaria. It's fertile, good climate, and all that. Number three is because the Akikuyu were very difficult people from the word go. They were very unfriendly, for lack of, I'm trying to think for aggressive, we could say, and did not like other people. In fact, I was reading, I think it's John Boyes, the king of the Akikuyu. It's also a pre-colonial document, actually. He talks about the Kikuyu not allowing anybody to pass through their land completely. If you pass through their land, whether they were Indian traders, Arab traders, Somali traders, it did not matter, Europeans, they did not allow people to cross their land. And that made them to be noticed. That made them to be noticed. The Maasai were almost the same, but not exactly. The Maasai were more tolerant, especially when you paid something and you showed some respect for them. They were more tolerant to let you pass through their land. The Kikuyu did not, and that attracted attention. And so, if you combine those three things, that's why you find a lot of talk about the Agikuyus in these European documents. Now, in this channel, I'll read those documents. I'll be reading documents that discuss the Agikuyu, pre-colonial and colonial, going as back as 1850s. I've read a document in 1850s talking about the Agikuyu, mentioning them before the European even had significant interactions with the people. So this channel is about that. We'll be discussing, reading those documents and sharing the stories that are in those documents and the ideas. And this, I need to make this point very clear. Some people have a problem with reading European documents, colonial documents, because they're like, oh, those stories, some of them, of course, they are biased. The Europeans writing, if you read C.W. Hobley's book, if you read Richard Maynard Sagan's book, there's a lot of racist framework that is used to express ideas. But that does not mean we shouldn't try to understand how these people thought of Africans. It is important for us to know how they thought, because if we know, then we can protect ourselves even in the 21st century when we think colonization is gone. Colonization is not gone, it's still here, very alive. The exploitation of resources still goes on, the exploitation of people still goes on. It's just happening in a different way that we can't see, or that is sort of hidden in very many things on layers. So you just think, oh, they left, we are independent. Not really. So the point is, it's very important for us to read these documents. These documents might be from 19th century, early 20th century, but some of the ideas you'll see there will open your eyes to what is likely to be happening today or likely to happen in a few years down the road. So if this kind of content will interest you, subscribe.